We was on the bottom, yeah. Now we headed to the top. New level. On my level, don't see anybody. I don't see him. This right here could never stop. This could never stop. Hey, this right here could never stop. Hold up, nah. Hey, this right here could never stop. Hold up, nah. Hey, this right here could never stop. Hold up, nah. Hey, this right here could never stop. Hold up, nah. One time. Hey. I live on a job, right? Yeah, I'm always at work, right? Real people stay by me, right? Haters wanna do hurt, right? No, they trying to stop me, right? Drag my name through dirt, right? I don't feed into the hate, right? I just answer with a smirk, facts. I feel so special, facts. I know my worth, facts. My bloodline royal, facts. We the kings of the earth, right? You can't stop this, nah. You can't stop this, no way.
Yeah. What's going on, brother? How you doing tonight? How you doing tonight, brother? You all right? You know who this is? That's Caesar who? Who does the world call this man? You don't know? So if you don't know who he is, let's see do you know who you are. What is your nationality?
I know it's not no white man's name. What I got.
Okay, what's your nationality? Look at the sign over here. These are the white man names that you talk about that was given to us, right? These are the names that God gave us. That's right.
I'm from Africa, but it was mine.
So what do they call you? Okay, so would you be a so-called African American? Okay, well let's see who you really are, because I want you to understand who God calls you, right? So when we realize who God calls us, we can start finding out what God has in store for us. Give me Deuteronomy 28 verse 15. The book of you right. You said we came from Africa. The Bible details what happened in Africa and how we got here. Read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 verse 15.
I think they have on the floor.
James Williams, read. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. So God is saying to the Israelites, remember the nation of Israel who Moses is talking to. Are you familiar with that story? What did Moses do for the children of Israel? He did what? He delivered us out of bondage, right? So this is Moses, this is a historical fact of Moses leading us out of bondage. Read it again from the top. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So God is saying that the nation of Israel will be cursed if we don't do all his commandments. Right, that's what he's saying, right? Now let me ask you a question. Is a curse a good thing or is it a bad thing? It could be both ways. That's what the world has taught us, right? Because we have learned to glorify evil in this world. Jeremiah chapter 6 verse 19. Hear, O earth, behold, I will bring evil. Do what? I will bring evil. So the curses God's talking about is evil. It's not talking about nothing good, right? So like when your parents told you, if you don't clean up your room by the time I get home, there's usually something bad going to follow that, right? What's one of the most evil things that happen to black people? Bring it out. Going to jail? Get killed? What about slavery? All right. What about slavery? There was nothing more evil than slavery that happened to our people. I'm going to show you something. What's going on right now? What's going on? Wickedness, right? What do you see on this sign? Because this is our history. Right, being sold by Africans and Arabs, right? Read what you got. The book of Daniel, chapter 9 and verse 11. Remember, we are only showing this because this is the history of the Israelites. So if our history lines up with their history, what did that make us? That makes us the children of Israel, James. That's right. I'm going to prove it. Keep reading. Read what you got. Yea, all Israel, nobody else, James. Read. Have transgressed thy law. We are in sin. We sinned when we left out of Egypt, and we still sin today. Read. Right. Even by departing, that they might not obey thy voice. We don't want to listen to what God says. How do you know that? Because you have people still sleeping from women to women today.
Right.
You have people still killing each other today.
Right.
People still stealing from their brothers today. Read. Therefore, the curse is poured upon us. There goes that evilness God was talking about in Deuteronomy to the nation of Israel. Read. In the oath that is written in the law of Moses. That oath is if you keep my commandments, you'll be blessed. If you break my commandments, I'm going to curse you. Read. The servant of God, because we have sinned against him, and he hath confirmed his word, which he spake against us, and against our judges that judged us. He said that against all of us, by bringing upon us a great evil, Verse 12, read. For under the whole heaven, under everybody on the face of the earth, read, hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. What? Hath not been done as hath been done upon Jerusalem. That's how it's letting us know that the nation of Israel cannot be nobody else but the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Because the curses we're about to read about only happened to the nation of Israel.
That's right.
Didn't happen to the white man. Didn't happen to the Arab man. Didn't happen to the Chinese man.
Right.
You said slavery was a great evil. That history should be in the Bible. If we're making the claim that we're the true Israelites, right? We're the Jews. That history should be in the Bible. That's I'm going to read it for you, James. Read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 68. Do you think the Negroes, the so-called Negroes, going into slavery is in the Bible, James? I'm going to show you. Read. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again. What was the nation of Israel doing in Egypt, James? You already said it.
In bondage.
We was in bondage. What's another word for bondage, James? Slavery. The same thing. We was in slavery then, we're still in slavery now. Read. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again. Back into slavery again. Read. Let's see how. With ships. What? With ships. God says we going into slavery on slave ships, James. The transatlantic slave trade. The sub-Saharan slave trade.
Bring it out.
That only happened to the nation of Israel.
That's right.
God said it didn't happen to nobody else. But remember, he's talking to Israel.
Right.
He's not talking to Native Americans. He's not talking to African Americans. Our biblical name is Israel.
That's
James.
right.
He read, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. He's saying the way I'm telling you it's going to happen, that's exactly how it's going to happen. It's not going to be different. You're going into slavery on slave ships because we did not keep the commandments of God. Now, when we was, you said it earlier, what happened to us when we got off those slave ships?
Bondage.
Placed in bondage. What else did you see here? You said it. Start with an S. What did they do to us? What did they do with us?
Slave trade.
Uh-huh.
Of Negroes sold by Africa.
We were sold. That's right. We were sold. The blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans were sold into slavery. Keep reading. Thou shalt see it no more again. As a nation of people, we didn't go back to Israel.
Right.
People catch flights back and forth to Africa. But as a nation of people, we never went back to Israel. We're still here in the same place they brought us in slavery. Read. In there, but there, when you got off that boat, this is what was going to happen to you. Ye shall be sold unto your enemy. What? Sold unto your enemy. God calls them our enemies. That's right. So you said, I have a white man name, that ain't my name? You absolutely correct.
Right.
Your name is Israel.
That's right.
You will be from the tribe of Judah, James. The so-called blacks here in America are from the tribe of Judah.
Right.
The nation of Israel. That God says if they didn't keep the commandments, they was going to go into slavery, James.
Right.
Men were slave men, read, and bond women. Slave women. Read. And no man shall buy you. God says, but nobody going to redeem us. Nobody was going to save us.
Right.
Give me verse 26. From Deuteronomy, you ask, why are we reading this? Because God left us an indicator we will be in the last days. Because after slavery, you'll forget who you are. Why? Because they'll give you Williams. They'll give you Johnson.
Right.
They'll give you Brown. They'll give you all their names to where we forgot Israel.
Right.
We forgot where we come from. That's why God said these curses is going to be this. Read verse 46. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 46. And they talking about those curses, like us going into slavery, us not keeping the commandments.
Right.
These curses, read, shall be upon thee for a sign.
A what?
A sign. James, what does a sign tell us? Right. It's an indicator.
What can count?
Right. It's an indicator. Like we know today, we on Okeechobee. Why? Because it's a big old sign that say Okeechobee. God says those curses are going to be what for us? They shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder. A wonder, James. Have you ever wondered why we went into slavery? Bring it out. Have you ever wondered how can we be so strong, so fast, so smart, and we got conquered by white people, James? Still getting these. Trickery. But God says it happened because we didn't keep his commandments. That's right. That's why. It wasn't trickery. It's because God says we didn't keep his commandments. Keep reading. Verse 47. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder. And upon thy seed forever. Forever. God says the curses that our forefathers went to, getting sold, getting locked up, getting murdered, what's going to happen to our children forever. Still today, we still getting killed by the cops. Right. We still going to jail. Right. We still being sold with the NFL draft and all these different things. Right. Nothing has changed, James. The only thing that's changed was they took the shackles off. Right. That's it. No chains on them. You know what that did to our people? It made them think they were free. But God says that the Israelites was going to remain in bondage. And it's going to be upon our seed forever. I'm going to show you. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10 and verse 12. And now Israel. James, you have to first realize that I'm not African American, right? You must acknowledge that I am an Israelite, right? Because the blessings of this Bible are not for African Americans, right? The kingdom of God is not for African Americans, right? Christ said he died only for the nation of Israel. So if your history match up with the nation of Israel history, that means you're from the nation of Israel. That's right. And you must acknowledge that. Have pride in that. You need to get to the top. And now Israel, you, James, us, read. What does the Lord thy God require of thee? That's the same question you asking. What does God require of me now? Read. But to fear the Lord thy God. To what? To fear the Lord thy God. We must have fear, James, of God. Why? Because God did this to us for breaking his commandments. God is still the one in control of all the evils that's happening to our people because of our disobedience. Keep reading that. But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. To keep the commandment. What? To keep the commandment. James, we must keep the commandments. Give me Leviticus 21:5. We must keep the commandments, James. Do you say today that you're keeping the commandments? No. That was a lot of us. Right. A lot of us didn't keep the commandments. Why? Because we didn't know the commandments was talking directly to us. That's right. Now you know you Israel, James. This Bible has a personal connection with you. Right. The Bible's talking directly to you when it say, keep thy commandments. Right. No other nation was given the commandments. That's why no other nation went into slavery. I'm going to show you a commandment you can keep ASAP. Easy. Read the book of Leviticus, chapter 21 and verse 5. You think God will ask you to do something that's too hard for you to do? He wouldn't do it. Everything here is easy for us to do, but we have to humble ourselves, right? They shall not make baldness upon their heads. So what? They shall not make baldness upon their heads. We are not allowed to shave our head bald, James. As the nation of Israel, we are not allowed to do that. Why? Because we're made in the image of God. Right. God has woolly hair. God has something else. Keep reading. They shall not make baldness upon their head. Neither shall they shave off the corner of their beard. God says we're also supposed to have a beard on our face. Right. If it don't grow, hey, you good. If it don't grow, you good. But if you deliberately go in the mirror and shave off the very image that God gave you, God says that's sin. Right. God said that is a sin against his commandments. The book of Leviticus, chapter 18 and verse 3. Do you think God will want us to be like our oppressors today? Bring it out. God, remember, he says we are holy unto him. Holy means to be separate, James. Right? So if we are separate, we should identify differently than the other nations.
Right.
Read. After the doings of the land of Egypt, after the doings of the land of Egypt, you said Egypt had us in bondage, right? Read. Wherein ye dwell, shall ye not do. God says we should not do as the Egyptians. The Egyptians shaved off all their hair. Bring it out. The so-called white man today shaved off his hair. You know where we learned that from, James? Slavery. Bring it out. Slavery. Not just America, but Egypt as well. Slavery after slavery, James, we begin to act more like the people that enslaved us. Right. Why? It's because we're forgetting who we are, James. Right. We're forgetting who we are. So Jeremiah 17:4. We're forgetting our very existence. Hey, bro, how you doing today, man? And we going over the real nationality of the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Yeah. What do you say your nationality is? You're Puerto Rican, right? So you look on this side, God actually calls you Ephraim. What's your name, brother? Joseph. That was actually a forefather name, right? Joseph, this is James. What we're going over today is our history. We're also the same people, right? Give me Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. Why did that stuff happen to you, James? Remember? Why? Disobedience to God. Now I'm asking you a question. Do the Puerto Ricans go through the same thing that the blacks go through? Pretty much, right?
We're slaves as well.
Y'all were slaves as well.
Bring it out.
Why do you think only the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans went into slavery?
White people in power.
Because white people in power?
They were in power.
They were in power.
They
I'm
had
going to show you
guns,
the
they
picture.
had money and guns.
Money and guns?
Yeah.
We just read it. We're going to show y'all together how the Hispanic history and the blacks history are the same history. Why? Because we're the same people.
Right.
Read Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 15. Hey, Joseph, when you look on this side, it says the 12 tribes of Israel. You see blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. We all have the same struggle. Read. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Moses is talking to the nation of Israel. Nobody else at this time. He said if you don't listen to future prophecy, read, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Do you know any commandments, Joseph?
Yeah.
What's one commandment?
Thou shalt not kill.
Do we do that as a people?
Some people do.
As a nation of people, don't we kill each other?
Yeah.
We kill each other, right?
Yeah.
What's the commandment you learned today, James?
Praise God. You know? That's not true. That's not true.
What about shaving your beard? That's a commandment we read. We're not allowed to do that as well. You agree with that, right? So going forward, what should you not do?
Anything that's contrary to what God says.
So shaving your beard, right?
Yeah.
Shaving your beard, James. Read. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15. But it shall come to pass. Future prophecy is going to happen to you. Read. If thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. Read. That all these curses. All these what? Curses. We are a cursed people. Right. The blacks and Hispanics are cursed people. Right. We're the only ones that's getting gunned down in the street. Right. It's happening to the blacks. It's happening to the Hispanics. We're the only ones who got taken from our homeland and put into slavery. Right. Read. Shall come upon thee and overtake thee. So Joseph, you said we went into slavery together, right? Read. Give me Deuteronomy 28 and verse 49 first. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 49. Stop. Joseph, what nation of people put the Hispanics into slavery?
Eastern European. They enslaved our own country. And then either the Pilgrims or
The Spaniards? The conquistadors?
Yes.
Right? What about you, James? Who enslaved the blacks?
Our own people.
Our own people? That's what we believe in. Let's see. Read. The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation, and what? A nation. He's going to bring a nation, James. Not the same people. This nation is talking about is a totally separate nation. Read it again. Against thee. Against who? Against thee. Against the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. A separate nation was going to come against us. Read. From far. From where? From far. Those white men came from the Caucasus Mountain. They wasn't our own people. To our Hispanic brothers, they came from Spain. They wasn't our own people. Read. From the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies. That's what? As swift as the eagle flies. James, what is American symbol? What's American symbol, James? The eagle, James. Hey, Joseph, what about the Spain? What were they symbol? Look at the sign. Look at the sign. You got Spain right here. What was their sign? The eagle as well. Bring it out. Read it again. Bring it out. As swift as the eagle flies. These the same people it's talking about that oppressed us, right? Give me Joel 3. Give me Joel 3. Because you think you African, huh? So what?
My ancestors, I'm a descendant from Africa.
Where at in Africa?
I don't know.
Look, here's Africa right here, James. Which part of Africa do you come from?
I don't know.
So how do you go claim home to something that you don't know where you are? Bring it out. Because if we was African, James, how come none of them ever came to get us? Huh? You got to ask for that, Joseph? If we're actually African, why nobody never came and got us?
And they were scared of people slaving, numbers.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters, the sons and daughters of the nation of Israel, read, shall be given unto another people. Who? Another people. James, we were sold unto another people, right? Right? Give me this on the dictionary for him. Right? Let me show you the sign. You said earlier that we was getting sold to Africans, right? We was getting sold to Africans, right, James?
By Africans.
By Africans, right? So you got Arabs.
I'm
gonna show you. You see Arab, you see whites, and you see Africans. These people sold us, right? Read verse 32 again. The book of Deuteronomy. Chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters, so the nation of Israel, the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, read, shall be given unto another people. Another people. So God says we're going to be given to another people. How come it has Arabs, whites, and Africans as our slave owners? Bring it up. That's not the same people. God's telling us we was given unto another people. So what does that tell you? What do you get from that, Joseph?
Camera and back. We were just traded and passed around like garbage.
We're different people than them, right? Every black person in Africa isn't the same people. This is the Zonovan. This is the Zonovan Compact Bible Dictionary. So this is a dictionary book by the scholars regarding things that happen in the Bible. Read. Ham. Do you know who Ham is? You familiar with Noah?
Yeah.
How many kids did Noah have?
Like 12.
Noah had 3. He had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Well, the only 3 that survived the flood with their wives, right? Let's see what it says about Ham. Read. Ham, the youngest son of Noah. That's what it says, the youngest son of Noah. Read. Born probably about 96 years before the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races. He is the forefather of the dark races. In other words, they say he will be the forefather of the Africans. It's going to list the Africans. Read. He became the progenitor of the dark race. Not the Negro. Not the Negro. It say Ham is the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negroes. It said we are separate from the people it's about to name. Read. What? The Egyptians. But who? The Egyptians were not the same as the Egyptians. That's how they knew who they had in slavery. Read. Ethiopia. We're not the same as the Ethiopians. Read. Libya. And Canaanites. And Canaanites. This is the land of Africa. We're not the same people. They had to have a target. Now the history that we're talking about, that we were sold, go back to Deuteronomy 28 verse 32. Because only the nation of Israel was sold for our disobedience. That's how they knew who we were. We moved different. We had separate laws. We had beards on our face. We had fringes on our clothes. They knew who we were, James. Right. We were not the same people. Read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 32. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
What?
Another people.
God says we was going to be given to another people. Those Africans are not our people. The whites are not our people.
Right.
The Arabs is not our people.
Right.
You got another history book to go into exactly what was happening. Read it to them. From Babylon.
This is from Babylon to Timbuktu by Windsor. In page 84.
Read.
In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem.
What? Who destroyed the temple in 70 AD? If y'all familiar with the history. We was fleeing Roman persecution.
Right.
When Christ was on the scene, he was under the Roman army, right? So this is us after 70 AD fleeing the persecution. Read.
In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. Great slaughter.
They murdered us at high amounts, right? Which is prophesied in the Bible to happen to us for our sin. Read.
During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people of Israel.
A lot of atrocities was committed against us. Like I read earlier in January 12. It only happened to us. Read.
During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews, 1 million Jews,
we are the real Jews. It's not talking about Africans. Read.
Fled into Africa.
We did what?
Fled into Africa.
That's how we got on the west coast of Africa, fleeing from the Roman persecution. We ran from this guy into this man, and he sold us into both of them. Read.
Fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution.
From Roman persecution. Who are the Romans? Are they black people? No. Who are they?
Like Eastern European or...
They're whites.
Like, European.
They're whites.
Yeah.
They're Caucasian.
Okay.
Read.
From Roman persecution and slavery.
And what?
In slavery.
You're going to hear Israel going into slavery a whole lot because we remain in sin.
Right.
Read.
The slave market.
The slave market. Let's see if it was filled with Africans. Read.
Were full of black Jewish slaves.
We are those slaves.
That's right.
Black Jews who was given unto another people. That's our history.
We used to scream black power while Heron was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission. Minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold. From Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are our men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.